I'm Kent, a 31-year-old office worker. I have an older brother, Steve, who's 7 years older. Growing up, our parents were always busy, so Steve was the one who took care of me. He adored me as his younger brother and always put me first. But he wasn't just about pampering. He knew when to be strict. As a result, I completely became a big brother's boy. Steve was an exceptional person even in my eyes. He always had top grades and was athletically gifted. He made learning fun and easy for me. You're amazing, big bro.
You're really amazing too, Kent. You learn quickly and have high comprehension skills, so you remember everything in no time.
Driven by my admiration for him, I worked hard every day. That effort led me to my current job. Just for the record, it's not like I had a bad relationship with my parents. I think our relationship's pretty normal. The one who's always supported me, though, was my childhood friend, Ashley.
Your calm nature is your strength.
Really,
Yes, I love that about you.
whenever I was worried or lacked confidence, she noticed and comforted me. Ashley has always been by my side, and she has now become my wife. She's now carrying our precious child, and we're building a happy family together. I think the company I work for has a great atmosphere. Everyone gets along well, helping and communicating with each other. I try to lend a hand whenever I can. I'm really grateful to work here,
Instead of chatting, get back to work.
but there's one exception. The atmosphere turns tense whenever our director, Miss Emily, shows up. She joined our department recently due to a personnel transfer.
I graduated from a prestigious university. You less qualified folks should just follow my orders.
The director, apparently very proud of her own educational background, kept bringing up the topic of academic credentials at every opportunity. Apparently, she's been asking everyone about their educational qualifications. It seems she has concluded that she has the highest level of education among the group. Personally, I value work performance over educational background, so her academic boasting doesn't impress me.
Which university did you attend?
She asked me one day. I didn't care for the conversation and was busy with work. I didn't attend a university in the US, anyway.
What? You're just a high school graduate? That's unbelievable. Nowadays, that's synonymous with incompetence.
When I tried to respond casually and just get on with my work, she presumptuously labeled me as only a high school graduate and started mocking me. But honestly, I didn't mind that much. I believe everyone has their own way of thinking. The director, who prides herself on graduating from a prestigious university, seems to think she is superior and correct, and that she doesn't need to listen to someone with a lower education level. Once she labeled me as a high school graduate, she never listened to anything I said. If all she does is mock me, I just have to ignore her.
Hey, you with a low education, get this job done by tomorrow.
What? Isn't this your task, director? Also, isn't the deadline for this job supposed to be next week?
You're incompetent. Just do as I say.
I was troubled by her assigning me her work and harassing me. Thankfully, my colleagues helped me out, but her presence turned the department's atmosphere sour.
Kent, are you okay? You look tired.
As soon as I got home and sighed, Ashley approached me. She works at the same company as me, but she's currently on maternity leave and unaware of the current situation at the office. I wish she would focus on preparing for the baby, but I ended up venting a little. Actually, I'm being targeted by someone difficult at work, and she's dumping her tasks on me.
That sounds tough. Can you tell me more about it?
Taking comfort in her gentle manner, I ended up telling her almost everything about the new director. Little did I know that this conversation would be passed on to someone else.
Kent, can I have a word?
Sure, go ahead. One day at work, my brother Steve, who works in a different department, approached me. Both my brother and I have moved out of our family home, and since we work in different departments and hold different positions at the same company, we rarely have a chance to talk. However, given that we frequently keep in touch, I was puzzled as to why he chose this particular moment to speak to me.
I heard from Ashley.
I couldn't help but give a wry smile at those words. Ashley has been my childhood friend, and she shares a close relationship with my brother. There's no romantic involvement between them, and I know my brother is already happily married and deeply in love with his wife, so there's no cause for concern. They've made it a point not to meet without me or Steve's wife, and always share their communication with me. He's still showing me those interactions from back then. It's not really necessary, though.
If you need me, I can step in.
It's okay. Talking to Ashley has already made me feel a lot better, and for now, I just want to wait and see how things go.
All right.
I smiled at my brother, who looked concerned, and declined his kind offer. We chatted about other things and then parted ways.
Hey there.
Director.
Why are you an incompetent, friendly with Steve?
Suddenly, out of nowhere, the director confronted me. I wonder if she is close to Steve. They must be almost 10 years apart.
You shouldn't be talking so casually to someone like him. Stay away from Steve from now on.
May I ask what is your relationship with him?
We were in the same department before. Well, I plan to make him mine someday.
Hearing those words, I couldn't help but be shocked and wide-eyed. She's actually after my brother.
He's such a handsome and talented man. A perfect match for a high achiever like me.
He is married, you know.
There are rumors, but he doesn't wear a ring, right?
Without revealing he's my brother, I tried to explain that he's a married man, but the director just wouldn't believe it. Indeed, my brother was then separated from my sister-in-law due to certain circumstances and didn't wear a ring. I could understand how the misunderstanding arose, but I wish she would listen to what others are saying. Even when I tried to stop her, she wouldn't listen.
What would a no-good like you know about him? Just stay away from him. You're uneducated and incompetent.
She said that and refused to listen to anything. I knew even if I told her I was his brother, she wouldn't believe me or would just use it to her advantage. After she left, I was at my wit's end. After that, I found myself on the receiving end of glares from the director day after day. Moreover, the harassment intensified, leaving me wondering what to do. Around that time, the previous CEO retired and a new CEO took office. A party for the inauguration was being organized.
I'm attending the party too. I was one of the first to get an invite.
The director was over the moon, bragging about it. But essentially, all employees were invited to the party. Everyone thought this, but no one said anything, not wanting to provoke her.
Jealous the.
"Oh, yes, sure," I replied, to which she smirked. I had a bad feeling about this. For a few days leading up to the party, she was surprisingly quiet. On the day of the party, due to some reasons, I arrived at the venue early. What? No seat for me? After chatting with the new CEO, I asked the hotel staff about my seat. I was surprised to be told there wasn't any. Confused, I voiced my bewilderment, then heard a laughter behind me. As I turned around, I was met with a surprise. "Director."
What a foolish look on your face.
She laughed, pointing at me. I thought in disbelief.
I had your seat removed.
How? Why?
The party organizer is my uncle. I asked him to remove your seat since you're uneducated and incompetent.
I can't believe someone would actually do that. As I stood there and settled, I noticed someone looking at us in surprise. That person's changing expressions helped me regain my composure.
There's no seat for the low-educated, so leave.
In the middle of the luxurious hotel's event space, I sighed deeply at those words. I was tired of being looked down upon for my education all the time. This might be a good chance to set things straight. With that thought, I sent a glance towards the person behind the director. He was wearing an expression of anger. "Well, I guess I'll be leaving then."
What? Really?
To the director's surprise, I easily agreed to leave. Her expression soon turned triumphant.
Then leave quickly.
There was no need for her to tell me. So, I quickly left the hotel as she wanted. Imagining what would happen next, I couldn't stop laughing. I wonder what will become of that clueless director. As I was enjoying my coffee, I received a call from her. Smirking, I answered the phone. From the phone came the director's panicked voice.
Please, come back right now. I had no idea you were.
She was clearly shaken, and I couldn't help but laugh. "You didn't think I was the new CEO's brother and the former CEO's son, did you?" "Yes, the new CEO is actually my brother, Steve. He was the one watching us that time." I had sent him a glance, asking him to keep quiet until the party started. If I hadn't done that, my brother might have yelled at the director right then and there. So, I sent him a look to keep quiet at that moment. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but yes, I am indeed the son of the former CEO. My father, the former CEO, is a man we both deeply respect. He was diagnosed with an illness one day, and though not hospitalized, he needed regular visits to the doctor. The problem was who would take care of him. Both my brother and I were busy with work, and our mother had recently injured her leg. While we were figuring out what to do, my sister-in-law stepped up to help. She used to be a doctor, so she moved into our parents' house to take care of them. Of course, my brother and I still visit our parents' home regularly, and importantly, my brother frequently travels between our parents' house and his own. He didn't move in with them because he's busy with the transition to becoming the CEO of the company, often returning home late at night, so it's more convenient for him to stay at his home closer to the office. This is why they have been living apart. Additionally, my brother has a metal allergy, which is why he doesn't wear a ring. This is no secret. Most people in positions of authority know about it, so we don't feel the need to announce it publicly. I didn't explicitly tell you because most of the senior staff already knew I was related to the CEO.
No way.
Well, you never listened to me in the first place. This party was not only to celebrate my brother's official appointment as the new CEO, but also to announce my father's recovery and introduce my sister-in-law as his wife to the entire company. At that event, I was supposed to be introduced as the brother and the future right-hand man of the new CEO. However, due to the director's actions against me, the plan was disrupted, and it apparently turned into an occasion to condemn her actions. While on the phone with her, I checked my messages and saw one from my brother asking me to come back. I stood up, leaving the coffee shop where I had been waiting. I hadn't gone far, just to a nearby shop for coffee. Because of that, I was able to return to the venue quickly. Sorry to keep you waiting. As I entered, all eyes were on me. I walked towards my brother and the others, with everyone watching.
You look tired, Kent.
There, I found my brother smiling eerily and the director, who looked like she was about to cry. When the director saw me, she hastily apologized.
I am so sorry.
No need to apologize. I have no intention of forgiving you. I replied without looking at her, smiling at my brother and the others. Sorry to trouble you.
Don't worry about it.
My brother, you would easily forgive me if I apologized. Then pointed at the director. It seemed like he was giving me the chance to retaliate before he took his own action against her. I nodded with a smile and turned to the director. It's not because you were disrespectful to a relative of the CEO that I won't forgive you. It's what you did to me personally.
I'm so sorry.
You're apologizing only because I'm related to the CEO, right? If I were the uneducated and incompetent person you claim me to be, you wouldn't be apologizing, would you? Saying this, the director turned pale. Oh yeah, I need to clear that up. I'm not just a high school graduate, you know.
What?
I did go to high school in the US, but for college, I studied abroad.
Abroad? I never heard that.
Well, I did say I didn't attend university in America, didn't I? The director's eyes widened in surprise. I'm not as accomplished as my brother, but I'm still quite capable. That's why I went abroad right after high school. Well, I don't brag about my education like someone I know.
How can this be? An uneducated and incompetent person.
If I'm uneducated and incompetent, then I wonder how exceptional the director must be. I asked her, and she fell silent. My brother stepped forward, signaling that he would deal with the situation seriously. Her shoulders slumped in defeat.
Kent, are you going to stay for the party?
No, I'm heading home. I want to get back to my wife, Originally, I was just supposed to be introduced and leave early. I had planned to leave early especially because my pregnant wife, Ashley, was waiting for me at home. Understanding this, my brother chuckled and let me leave of my own accord.
Pa, welcome back. You could have stayed longer at the party, you know.
The party's not as important as you are, Ashley. I came home to my beloved wife, smiling genuinely. My special feelings for Ashley began in high school. Back then, I was struggling a lot. Despite my respect for them now, I felt a terrible inferiority complex towards my accomplished family. My brother has always been outstanding since our school days, and my parents were both successful, with my mother formerly working as my father's secretary. I felt crushed under the pressure of being in such an elite family. I'm worthless.
That's not true. You're amazing too.
I can't match my brother's grades or his sports accolades.
You and your brother are different, and you have qualities he doesn't have.
I lacked any self-confidence and felt looked down upon, though no one had said anything. My brother and parents tried to spend time with me despite their busy schedules, but I couldn't appreciate it during my teenage years. Ashley was the one who comforted and supported me through it all. She always had kind words for me and gradually became someone special to me. Thanks for everything, Ashley.
It's nothing. I just can't leave you alone.
She would often say that, supporting me through my many moments of doubt. I've always found it hard to get angry. It's exhausting, and I thought it's easier to just let things slide. This led to people underestimating me and causing issues due to my status as the CEO's son.
If anyone messes with you, I'll deal with them.
Ashley would get angry on my behalf and always drove those troublemakers away. She would even get hurt sometimes, but she stayed by my side. I wanted to protect her, to become stronger, both physically and mentally. So, when my father suggested studying abroad, I accepted.
Aren't you going to tell Ashley?
Yeah, and please, brother, don't say anything unnecessary, okay? At that time, I left for overseas without telling Ashley anything. I decided if she found someone else by the time I returned, I would give up on her. Thankfully, after graduating successfully, I was greeted at the airport by both my brother Steve and Ashley.
Welcome back.
After she said that, I confessed my feelings to her. We started dating, and now we're happily married, expecting our child soon. Hey Ashley, thanks for everything.
Why the sudden gratitude?
You talked to my brother about everything, right? That's why I could fight back, so.
Of course, I've always seen you as someone special since we were kids. I couldn't stand anyone hurting you.
Ashley said with a smile. I still have a long way to go. The person I wanted to protect was protecting me.
Just make sure you'll make me and our child happy.
Of course, I will. I firmly promise to build a happy life with Ashley. The next time I went to work, the director was no longer there. My brother informed me about her situation. She had been transferred to our department due to issues she caused elsewhere. The issue was about her stalking behavior towards my brother. It came to light through reports from my brother and others. Normally, this would have led to her dismissal, but unfortunately, Our father fell around that time. In the rush to handle the transition of responsibilities, the situation was overlooked, and during that period, the director's uncle, who was an executive, covered it up. She only got a department transfer as a consequence. I wish you had told me about it.
I didn't want to worry you. You've always been calm and don't attack others, but that makes you worry more.
That's irrelevant now. I've always been considered too gentle and kind by others, but I don't think I'm particularly nice just because I don't get angry. So, the director and her uncle, the executive, are both currently under suspension. It's just a brief respite, really. My brother is very capable and uncompromising. Anyone who has angered him in the past has faced severe consequences. I silently sympathized with the director's future. Eventually, both of them were demoted to a newly established branch on a remote island. They're stationed on a remote island with surveillance, so there's no escaping. Their primary job is essentially sorting emails coming from the main office. Other than that, there's basically no work or entertainment. However, they have to work there as a form of compensation for the trouble they caused us. I wonder how much stress they're under now. With these thoughts, I continued my work. Following this incident, I was appointed as the new director. I had already been handling most of the director's work, so the transition was smooth.
Keep up the good work and climb the ranks. I need you as my right-hand man eventually.
In response to his expectations, I'm continually improving myself. Years later, Ashley and I now have 2 children. My brother doesn't have any kids of his own, but he adores ours. Choose your own path. You don't have to go to college. Studying abroad is also an option, but always be considerate of others. Education isn't everything. Make sure you look at the people you meet closely to know who they truly are. That's how I teach my children. Their future path is uncertain, and they might face struggles like I did, but Ashley and I will always be there to support them.
Useless old farts like you are a wasted cost. You're fired.
The newly transferred younger branch manager, Dave, was a jerk who forced his employees to work unreasonably. As we approached the busy season, I decided to negotiate with Dave, who imposes unreasonable quotas without considering everyone's workload, to see if we could reduce our workload. However, Dave wouldn't hear of it, saying he'd consider it only if I apologized in front of everyone. I understood. I have no choice but to apologize in front of my colleagues. Despite enjoying the spectacle, Dave reneged on his promise. I've put up with Dave's tyranny until now, but it seems this is the end. I chose to resign, dedicating myself to work until my last day. My name is William, 51 years old. My occupation is a banker. My hobby is visiting cafes. A cup of coffee to take a break from work is my favorite part of the day. Having worked in banking since my 20s, I've surpassed 30 years of service. While banking might seem elite and high-earning, it's actually gritty and incredibly demanding. Frequent relocations are common for bankers, usually for fraud and collusion prevention. However, directives from the Financial Services Agency have recently reduced these transfers. I agree that there will be fewer transfers because I thought it would be a hassle to move within a few years due to the transfer and to greet the transfer. I have been working at a branch close to the headquarters for more than 5 years, so I have more familiar faces and customers. However, business remains as busy as ever, and sometimes young bankers leave the company because of the intense workload. At this age, despite higher salary and rank showing personal growth, the intense work and hierarchical pressure have me contemplating a career change. Should I continue working as a bank teller until retirement, or should I take on something else that I want to do? Lately, I've been constantly thinking about my future. In April, a significant transfer brought in Dave as the new branch manager. He's a man who, at the young age of 43, was promoted to branch manager after serving as an assistant branch manager at the previous branch. In a bank where seniority mattered since the announcement of his transfer, his quick promotion had become a topic of discussion among the staff. I heard that Dave was so good that he got a bank award for getting contracts one after another at his previous branch. Our branch, being close to headquarters, is busier, especially with paperwork leading to overtime. We all had high hopes for Dave's leadership. Those hopes were dashed.
I'm Dave, the new branch manager. Don't expect any kindness from me. Everyone works overtime until all meet their quota.
His greeting was a display of arrogance. Being a banker is a demanding job, where even small mistakes can lead to significant losses. That's why supervisors always have to stay on their toes and closely monitor their bankers' work. Dave, too, seemed to be speaking from a place of responsibility.
Hey, you! What's with this incomprehensible report? What happened to your language skills?
I am sorry.
While working on paperwork, Dave suddenly lashed out at a young banker. Dave always sports a sales smile in front of customers. But in front of us, his smile fades and he glares at us like a demon. It was not just a work supervision, but a search for trouble. When he finds the slightest mistake by a banker, he yells at him quite over the top. Even now, he was stingy with reports filled out by a young banker and went out of his way to call them in.
Rewrite this and bring it back.
Yes, sir.
The young banker, tasked with rewriting, looked disheartened. He's not the only one. Especially, the young bankers seem to have caught Dave's attention, and I witnessed scenes where even minor things are blamed. For example, if there is a mistake in the reinspection of documents, he nitpicks and orders a reinspection after confirming that there are no mistakes. The confirmation of no mistakes, such a wasteful clerical task, was frustrating for the bankers. However, if you resist Dave even a little, you'll end up with extra work and overtime, so there was no choice but to obediently follow orders. As a senior banker, I tried to build a relationship between Dave and the bank staff, but the distance between them still did not seem to be getting any closer. Dave's issues don't stop there. Is this just scribbles? Scribbling on important documents?
That's Manager Dave's signature.
Ever since Dave was transferred here, these kinds of interactions have happened many times. Dave is the owner of incredibly messy handwriting. Dave's handwriting is difficult to read, and sometimes it's completely indecipherable like before. At its worst, the ink from his pen would smudge on the paper, making it so frustrating, it felt like tearing it apart. When it was indecipherable, collaborating with other bankers to somehow decipher, it was part of our job. Yet, No one dared to point out Dave's terrible handwriting for fear of being targeted and harassed by him. Moreover, the branch manager had a certain degree of authority over personnel, and opposing him could affect internal transfers and performance evaluations.
Dave's handwriting is the messiest in the branch, but in contrast, William's is really neat.
Oh, really? That's great. Thank you.
Everyone says your handwriting is beautiful. Sometimes we even use it as a model.
I can help but be embarrassed when a junior banker praises me so much. Then, other bankers who overheard our conversation also complimented my neat and skilled handwriting. As everyone was asking me for tips on writing beautifully, I heard Dave clearing his throat. Turning towards the sound, I saw Dave standing imposingly, glaring at me.
You seem to be much admired by your colleagues, William.
Branch manager Dave. Dave saw me in an awkward moment.
I don't know whose handwriting is bad, but are you happy being fawned over for something like that?
I'm overwhelmed. Dave hadn't heard the part about himself. It was a relief, but Dave seemed displeased, seeing me surrounded by my bankers. All bankers had darkened their expressions at Data's appearance.
If you have time to chat, get back to work.
Yes, sir. Dave's command dispersed us. Interacting with Dave made one thing clear. He resented me for being admired by the bankers. Since noticing Dave's jealousy, I felt uneasy chatting with colleagues, as if being glared at. Unfortunately, I was marked by a troublesome man and lamented inwardly. To climb the corporate ladder or survive in this hierarchical society, one must ingratiate themselves with those above. Everyone was desperately trying not to upset Dave. Since Dave's transfer, the workplace felt very constrained, making it increasingly difficult for me to work here. A few months after Dave's arrival, the hot season approached. As we entered the busy season, the workload was significantly heavier than usual. The other bankers were also showing signs of fatigue. Our stress only increased without even a proper break for coffee. Yet, in the midst of this busy period, Dave would force us to attend drinking parties.
Anyone who doesn't attend will have their performance review marked down at headquarters. A lower evaluation affects not just promotions, but also salary assessments.
It was unclear how serious Dave was, but unable to oppose his threats. We attended the drinking parties exhausted after work. Concerned about the potential for mistakes, I decided to negotiate with Dave to reduce each person's workload. Everyone agreed with my opinion.
Please do it for us, William.
I'll try to negotiate. I decided to call Dave to a secluded place and negotiate with him. I was concerned that if Dave lost his temper in front of the bankers, it would scare everyone and disrupt our work.
What do you want, William? I'm busier than you. Just say what you need.
When it was just the two of us, Dave openly showed his displeasure. I wanted to complain about the sarcastic look on his face, but I didn't call him to argue. Thank you for your time. I have a sincere request. I directly appealed to Dave to reduce the workload per person. This is not just from me, but a collective request from everyone. We don't want to push you, but continuing like this might lead to mistakes. I calmly tried to negotiate with Dave, but he remained silent with his arms folded. As I tentatively spoke, Dave glared at me sharply.
So, you called me here for this. Stop wasting time on such trivialities and get back to work.
Dave dismissed our plea outright. I got frustrated and stopped him as he was about to leave the place. Please wait. Even just reducing the after-work drinking would help. Everyone is working hard. Please let them go home early and rest. I pleaded earnestly. Dave then smirked, looking at me.
You're over 50, right, William? You're the elder of this branch. It must be tough being relied on by bankers, only when convenient.
That's not true. I rely on them too. Dave changed the subject abruptly, leaving me confused about his point.
You think you're a dependable boss, but it's because of people like you that the younger ones don't grow.
What are you suddenly talking about? I haven't done anything. Dave interrupts me and sticks his finger in my face.
Useless old farts like you are a wasted cost. You're fired.
I couldn't comprehend being told such a thing just for negotiating.
If you don't want to be fired, say it to me in front of everyone. Please let us take a break.
Dave intended to humiliate me in front of everyone. I guess he doesn't like that I, the elder one, am adored by colleagues. How far will he go in ridiculing someone? I was furious, but returning to my colleagues without achieving anything felt pathetic. If I really apologize, will you do me a favor?
Maybe.
I understood. I responded tersely. Despite the vague promise, thinking my submission might ease everyone's burden, I returned with Dave to face the staff. Then I apologized to Dave in front of everyone. Unaware of the situation, they were shocked to see me suddenly apologize.
What are you doing, William?
Ignoring their surprise, Dave looked down at me.
How hilarious.
The sound of a camera shutter came. I saw Dave recording me with his phone. Stop it with the camera, Manager Dave.
Don't you have something to say to me? Otherwise, our deal is off.
Reluctantly, at Dave's insistence, I voiced out, please, reduce everyone's workload. My voice sounded choked. I apologized in front of all the bankers, my face almost on fire with embarrassment and misery.
All right, that's enough entertainment.
So, you'll consider our request. To make everyone's job easier, I followed Dave's unpleasant orders. I genuinely hoped he would grant our request.
Did I say I'd grant it?
Stunned by Dave's response, I realized my efforts were in vain. I clenched my fists and glared at Dave. I can no longer follow you. I will submit my resignation and leave at the end of this month. If I'm going to be fired, I'd rather quit myself. I chose to resign myself rather than be fired.
Are you really quitting? After all the hard work you've put in, you're willing to throw away your career?
Dave seemed amused to hear I was quitting. I prefer to work closely with our customers rather than pursuing promotion. What's important to me in my job is earning the trust of our customers and becoming their best partner. I'll never forget the thrill of a financially struggling customer to whom I'd lent money to get their business on track. That's where I found my satisfaction in being a banker all these years. Not everyone is driven by a desire for advancement. That was my counter-argument. Dave seemed annoyed by my calm demeanor and scowled.
If you're so eager to quit, then quit.
Yes, I will. Though my time with you as manager was short, thank you for your guidance. I returned to my desk. Seeing what had happened, My colleagues were visibly shocked and quickly gathered around me.
William, are you really leaving? Without you, there's no one to stand up to the manager.
Their eyes pleaded with me not to go. Some were new transfers, but I felt sorry for all the friendly faces. However, my mind was made up. From now until my last day, there are various things that need to be done. Saying goodbye to the customers I was responsible for and handing over my duties to another banker, quitting doesn't mean the workload gets any lighter. When I made my final farewell, the reality of leaving my long-term job hit me. On my last day as a banker, I worked harder than ever before. I smoothly handled the teller services and office tasks, and it was just a few hours away from the end of my tenure as a banker.
A $100 million account canceled. What's going on?
Dave's sudden outburst left everyone stunned. Manager, what's wrong with your sudden loud voice?
A major client called to suddenly close their account.
The manager was visibly panicked. The figure of $100 million struck a chord with me. When I mentioned the name of the major client, it turned out to be the very same customer. That customer was under my care.
What?
In fact, I had been handling a major client who favored me. I became responsible for this client on my first day at this branch. The customer initially came to the bank to get a loan for starting a business. Back then, starting from scratch, our trust was thin, but I continued to provide supportive service, hoping their business would succeed. 6 months after receiving the loan, fortunately, the business took off successfully. The primary client was pleased to have trusted me, and from there, they steadily increased their performance, now being the president of a corporation with sales exceeding $70 billion. It was quite challenging, but they have repaid all the borrowed money. Since then, we've built a strong relationship of trust, and the client expressed a desire not to change their representative aside from me. Of course, I have already informed them of my resignation. They were very sorry to hear it, but encouraged me by saying they would help if I ever needed it. And I remembered they said they would move their money to another bank if I was no longer their account manager. If it became known externally that a major client suddenly canceled, it could lead to strange rumors. At worst, it could affect our bank's credibility.
William, go persuade that client to stop the cancellation right now.
Dave commanded me with a pale face. That's impossible. I'm already leaving. I've informed the customer as well.
Then, have someone else go and negotiate.
Dave commanded the other bankers, but everyone balked at the unreasonable order. I'm quitting anyway, so I'm not afraid of what he says. In that invincible state, I felt no fear towards Dave. If you don't want the cancellation, branch manager Dave should go directly. If you care about the branch's reputation, you, as the manager, should negotiate. Dave looked at me with wide eyes, as if he hadn't expected me to talk back.
There's no need for me to step in.
Dave admits he's good at putting on a sales smile, but not so much at customer service. In that case, albeit reluctantly, please respect the customer's wishes. If you try to retain them forcibly, you might anger them and lose their trust. My advice seemed to hit home, as Dave thought for a moment, then clicked his tongue.
Well, we have other major clients. Losing one isn't a big deal.
Dave's attitude irked me. How could he speak like that? when we're entrusted with the customer's significant funds, I nearly blurted out my farts. Dave didn't try to empathize with the customer, prioritizing the branch's sales and his own evaluation instead. All of us expressed our anger towards Dave.
What's with those looks? If you defy me, the branch manager, I'll make sure your evaluations suffer.
Dave glared at us, sensing our expressions. I stepped up to confront Dave. Since I'm leaving, I'll speak my mind. Frankly, your management style is harassment, increasing unnecessary paperwork, extending everyone's overtime, and intimidating the younger staff into submission. Please stop such terrible practices.
Just because you're leaving, you think you can speak insolently? Even after you're gone, I can make your life difficult socially.
Dave showed hostility, glaring at me. A tense standoff began between us. Then, an banker ran over.
Excuse me, has anyone received a credit card from a customer?
What? According to the banker, a major client, an investor, had come to the branch for counter service. They had handed over their credit card during the procedures and forgotten to take it back. Realizing this just after leaving the bank, they hurried back. Then we must return it quickly. Does anyone recall receiving it? No one stepped forward. It seemed no one had any recollection. Dave was nowhere to be seen, having disappeared somewhere. While the customer was waiting, those of us who were free began to search for the card. However, despite looking in every nook and cranny of the bank, we couldn't find it, and the customer became increasingly anxious. This is a mess. Who lost it? Our search for the card was becoming increasingly difficult when another unfortunate event occurred.
William, the auditor is here.
What? At this busy time? To our surprise, an auditor from headquarters had arrived. Neither I nor anyone else had been informed of this during this morning's briefing. Dave was likely the only one who knew, but he was nowhere to be found.
What's going on here?
The auditor looked suspicious of our situation. I explained the circumstances in Dave's absence. Then he suggested that the security cameras could identify who handled it. We quickly reviewed the surveillance footage with security, and there was Dave seen taking the card. Strictly speaking, another banker was initially handling the customer. However, Dave took the card while the banker was processing and for some reason placed it on top of some documents. Since the documents were still there, I immediately retrieved the card and returned it to the customer. After apologizing deeply, the customer, familiar with me, forgave us with a smile. The resolution of the incident had everyone sighing in relief. However, the question of why Dave had done such a thing still lingered. Then, the very person in question snuck back in. "Where have you been, branch manager? It was a mess here."
I had a bit of a stomachache, so I was in the bathroom.
Dave said, rubbing his stomach as if to sidestep the issue. When confronted with the security camera footage, proving Dave was the cause, he confessed readily.
I didn't do it on purpose. I just misunderstood and thought it was a customer's forgotten item. I panicked because I feared being caught, so I ran to the bathroom without thinking. Well, if the customer isn't mad, then I guess it's all good.
Despite causing a disruption in everyone's work, Dave was brazen about it. "Manager, look behind you."
Huh.
Prompted by me, he turned around.
Yikes!
What's yikes? Branch Manager Dave.
Upon making eye contact with the auditor, Dave visibly panicked, his legs shaking. You knew he was coming, didn't you? Why didn't you inform us at the morning briefing?
I forgot it.
As expected, I sighed in exasperation.
A communication mistake from the branch manager, I see.
At that remark, Dave turned pale. This situation was probably bad for him. After losing a major client worth $100 million and causing a disruption in the banker's work due to his own actions, and with the auditor confirming it via security cameras, there was no escaping the blame. If this blunder became known to headquarters, his evaluation would plummet, endangering his career advancement. Sweating profusely, Dave nervously clasped his hands.
There's still time until the end of the business day. We will discuss this after closing, so please continue with your usual duties until then.
Yes. Afterward, the auditor checked our work and ensured that transactions were conducted fairly. During this time, Dave had none of his usual yelling and pressure. He was like a cat that had encountered a stronger animal in its territory, scared and subdued. If only he was always this subdued, we could work without feeling on edge, making our jobs easier. I even wished someone from headquarters would visit every day. As closing time arrived and all the customers had left, we began the closing tasks.
By the way, William, you're retiring today, aren't you? Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Your performance is well known at headquarters. You're considered the top salesman among the bankers.
My hard work was appreciated by the headquarters. I was embarrassed to learn that.
I've observed your customer service as well, and truly, with your wealth of experience, it was exemplary.
Thank you. I'm truly honored to hear that. Dave, not pleased with me being praised, intruded between me and the auditor with a sleazy grin. He smiled a crude smile, trying to get in the auditor's way.
His good customer service is all thanks to my guidance.
Dave has consistently taken credit for others' hard work. However, someone objected to his claim.
That's not true. William's customer service has been excellent even before the branch manager transferred here.
A junior banker refuted Dave's statement. Following that, one by one, other bankers began voicing their objections against Dave.
The reason William is resigning is also because of the branch manager. He made William apologize and recorded it on his phone.
The auditor rolled his eyes. Exposed by his bankers, Dave was terribly flustered.
Are all of you ganging up to blame me?
Yes, we are.
Everyone nodded vigorously. Dave realized that no one in the room was there to defend him. The auditor calmly grasped the situation and spoke to Dave.
Branch Manager Dave, please show me the video. You mentioned of someone's apology.
Hesitant to hand over his cell phone, as even he couldn't believe it.
If you refuse, that action will also be entered into the investigation report. It will be considered an act of distrust towards headquarters.
Under his silent pressure, Dave eventually took out his cell phone and played the video saved on his phone. Seeing myself in the video filled me with embarrassment and shame. The auditor, watching the video silently, muttered, "This is terrible."
This is clear harassment. I'll also submit this video to headquarters.
Oh no.
Dave seemed to be already shocked, but I pressed on further. Branch manager, now is the time to denounce everything you've done to us.
What? Hey, stop it. Please.
I exposed his daily misconduct to the auditor. I wasn't the only one harassed by Dave. Dumping work on others, excessive quotas, and verbal abuse causing mental distress to bankers, I spilled all the hardships we endured from Dave.
Hey, William, I was wrong. Please, stop it.
Dave is completely weak and begs for forgiveness. He is terrified that he will be removed from his position as branch manager. It's not just me you should apologize to. Please apologize to everyone here. Dave's pride prevented him from apologizing. Fed up with such a person, I strengthened my tone. Apologize from the bottom of your heart.
Damn, Eck.
Dave, with a pained voice, trembled and bowed to each person one by one.
I'm very sorry.
He stands in front of his subordinates and apologizes. It was an act of humiliation for Dave. But if one has wronged others, apologizing is only natural. After apologizing to everyone, Dave had tears in his eyes, his face flushed.
Does this mean you forgive me?
Like a abandoned puppy, the auditor coldly declared.
Just because you apologize doesn't mean your sins are erased. I will report everything to headquarters.
Dave collapsed on the spot, kneeling and sobbing. After the auditor completed the investigation at the branch and compiled the report for headquarters, Dave was soon called to headquarters, and in the meantime, the deputy manager took charge of the branch as acting manager. And the story I heard from a junior went like this. That video served as evidence of harassment, and the branch manager was demoted. Dave was demoted from branch manager to a regular banker. For someone who climbed to the position of branch manager, to fall to a regular banker was unprecedented. But it showed the extent of Dave's misdeeds. The incident became known throughout all branches, and all managers were required to undergo compliance training. It turns out Dave had harassed bankers at his previous branch too. Prompted by this incident, one of the bankers from the previous branch spoke out. A banker who was harassed, forced to work overtime, and ended up hospitalized due to the stress. It also came to light that Dave became a branch manager by taking credit for that person's work, making the situation far more serious than imagined. Dave was set to be transferred to another branch as a demotion, but with things having come this far, the CEO had lost faith in Dave and decided to fire him. The HR personnel and executives who recommended Dave for the branch manager position were also held accountable and received salary cuts as punishment. The bank, having failed to see through Dave's misconduct and character, was sued by the families of the bankers for harassment actions, facing demands for a large sum in damages. From being a high-earning branch manager, Dave suddenly found himself at rock bottom. And yet, Dave's punishment didn't end there. The video of me being forced to apologize somehow leaked to the internet. My face and the background were blurred to obscure the location and the people involved, but the voice off-screen was immediately recognizable as Dave's. Soon after, the internet spread it, and Dave's face and identity were swiftly exposed. The final blow was when Dave's address and family details were leaked. His wife and children left him, and even his parents disowned him. As a result, Dave ended up completely alone, unable to find decent work, living in a rundown apartment, haunted by nightmares. While I find the fervor of online vilification terrifying, realizing it was retaliation from those Dave had tormented made me sever ties with him for good. After resigning, I transitioned from being a banker to owning a cafe. I had always harbored a strong desire to run a cafe while working at the bank. Leaving the bank was the push I needed to pursue the job I always wanted to try. Despite being a small establishment, it turned out close to my ideal, and fulfilling this dream brought me immense joy. Although my income has decreased, I've been liberated from the grueling workload and pressure, living a fulfilling life that blends hobby with work. It's been years since I've had the leisure to brew coffee slowly. Remarkably, upon opening, customers I had served in the past, having heard I started a cafe, came to support me by enjoying a cup of coffee. Among them were professionals in business management, who offered advice and even support. Maintaining connections with these customers after resigning feels like a reward for my service efforts. I am once again glad that I did my best and continued to work as a banker. I offered my coffee to the customers, hoping they would become regulars.
Show me where the incompetent Pua guy works.
Maddie said, ruining my excitement for the long-awaited class reunion. She always says mean things to me and tries to one-up me like this. The reason? Because I wasn't very good at studying during our school days. I felt annoyed by her lingering resentment, even at the age of 40. But at the same time, I couldn't help but be impressed by how well she remembers such things. Maddie apparently wants to see where I, whom she considers incompetent for not being able to study well, work. So, after the reunion, I decided to take her to the president's office of her husband's company. She laughed, not knowing that I am the president of a major company with 7,500 employees. But when her husband came out of the office to explain the situation, her face turned pale. And then, I regretted my behavior up until now. My name is Ethan. I'm turning 40 this year. I run a company with 7,500 employees, and I've finally reached a point where I can take some time off. When I first started my business, I was so busy that I didn't have any time to spare, and I had to decline invitations to class reunions. But this time, I've agreed to attend. This reunion will include people from my class in high school, whom I haven't seen in decades. As I looked through the yearbook to confirm the attendees, among the familiar faces, there was one person who elicited a feeling of disgust. That person was Maddie, who used to take charge of our class and was a member of the so-called popular group. As I gazed at her photo, memories from the past involuntarily flooded back. It was around July in the 12th grade in high school. I was unlucky enough to be surrounded by girls after a seating change. As someone who liked to gossip with friends during class, it wasn't the best environment for me. And then, an incident occurred. That day, my buddy was absent, and I was eating lunch alone. Girls were clustering around the desks nearby, and although I felt a bit uncomfortable, I continued eating my meal. I heard the beautiful chirping of birds from outside the window, so I suddenly wanted to see the outside view and looked up towards the window. That's when my eyes met with a girl who happened to be nearby. That girl was Maddie.
Hey, what are you looking at? You were checking my breast out, weren't you?
I was just trying to look outside the window.
Ooh, you're saying I misunderstood?
No, that's not what I meant.
For some reason, she suspected that I was checking out her breast and kept making accusatory remarks throughout lunch break. Moreover, since her voice echoed throughout the classroom, her suspicion also became the cause of my classmates' cold stares. No matter how much I tried to explain, Maddie seemed intent on painting me as the villain. Eventually, the misunderstanding among my classmates was cleared up, but from that day on, Maddie and her friends started harassing me.
You're looking at me again, huh? It's creepy, so stop it.
I told you, I'm not looking at you, Maddie.
I wonder.
She would often make baseless accusations like this, and sometimes even hide my textbooks. While my classmates and friends would always come to my rescue, Maddie never stopped her harassment. If anything, seeing that I had allies seemed to anger her even more, causing her to escalate her behavior. For example, she once wrote a fake love letter to me, called me out, and then laughed at me when she saw me waiting earnestly. Or she would designate a different meeting spot for the class gathering than the one everyone else knew about. Luckily, I had plans to go to the gathering with my friends, so I managed to find the correct meeting spot. In this manner, Maddie continued her harassment of me until graduation. I had completely forgotten about it after graduation, but apparently, Maddie is also attending this reunion. Despite feeling somewhat uneasy, I was looking forward to seeing my old classmates again after a long time. A month after receiving the invitation, the day of the reunion arrived. Since I had finished important work the day before, I could fully enjoy the reunion today without any worries. With a mix of nervousness and excitement, I headed to the reunion venue. Apparently, there were a lot of attendees this time, so they rented a slightly upscale venue. The plan was to use a luxury hotel as the venue, and the fee was set at $100 per person, which was quite high. But at the age of 40, there were probably many people who could easily afford that amount of money. I took the elevator to the designated floor and checked the information board. Then, I handed the envelope containing the fee to a classmate at the reception and entered the venue, where some people had already arrived. As I scanned the venue, I immediately spotted Maddie. I tried to move to the edge as I didn't want to interact with her, but unfortunately, it seemed like I caught her attention. When Maddie noticed me, she happily ran over to me.
I can't believe you're actually attending the reunion. Did you pay the fee properly?
Long time no see. I paid it properly at the reception.
Really? I wonder. Did someone else pay for you anyway?
No, I paid out of my own pocket. Right off the bat, Maddie started making sarcastic remarks to me. Even though she's turning 40, I thought she would have grown into a more mature personality, but she's still the same as she was in school. Disappointed that my faint hope of being able to get along with her now had been dashed, I decided to go get a drink, albeit somewhat dejectedly. I went to get a drink to avoid Maddie, but for some reason, she followed me. And then, she started asking me about what job I'm doing now, how much money I have, and various other things.
Hey, where do you work now?
Well,
Can't say, huh? My husband works for a major company, and he's really handsome.
as I hesitated to answer, Maddie seemed to have figured I must be working somewhere I can't talk about, so she started talking about her husband. She met her husband at a singles mixer, and they got married right away. Since they could live on her husband's salary alone, Maddie became a housewife. And now, they've been blessed with 2 children and are living a comfortable life.
Well, I'm not like you. A poor guy.
Poor guy.
Well, Hart, you couldn't study at all in school, right?
That's decades ago. You know. It seems that Maddie remembers that I was bad at studying, and she keeps teasing me about it even now. While feeling frustrated that she's still holding onto that even at the age of 40, I can't help but be impressed that she remembers such things. Maddie has always been considered cute, and although our grades were probably not much different, she has quite a high self-esteem. It would be fine if she just had high self-esteem, but it's troublesome that she tries to put others down to elevate herself. It seems that my classmates can hear Maddie's voice, and although they're clearly frowning, Maddie continues to list her complaints about me in front of everyone. After a while, the reunion began, and I was satisfied to be able to talk to my old friends. But as the event approached its end, I found myself being harassed by Maddie again.
Let me see where the incompetent poor guy works.
My workplace?
Yeah. You must be free after this, right? Take me there.
It seems she still wants to look down on me. Although I hesitated a bit, I couldn't just let her keep misunderstanding, so I decided to take her to my workplace. All right, meet me in front of the hotel after the reunion.
Looking forward to it. You're probably working in some rundown building, right?
Afterward, Maddie and I met in front of the hotel and took a taxi to my workplace. My workplace is in a prime location in downtown area. As the taxi approached the city, Maddie started to fidget nervously. And when I got out of the taxi in front of a large building, she looked around anxiously.
So where's your workplace?
Right here. This building in front of us.
This building is your workplace. Oh, I see. You work as a janitor or security guard here, right?
Perhaps feeling more flustered than she expected at the sight of a larger building, Maddie began talking as if I were dispatched to work in the building rather than the fact that I worked there officially. But I'm the president who manages this entire building, and she needs to know that. Interrupting Maddie, I told her the truth. I'm the president of the company in this building, whether you want to believe it or not.
President. Saying you're an employee would be more believable than president.
So you think, about 10 years ago, I started a company from scratch and became the president.
Don't lie. There's no way you could become president. Show me some proof.
Maddie demanded proof that I'm the president of the company, so I took out my business card from my pocket. Then, I took out one of them politely. I handed it to her with both hands. Taking the business card from me, Maddie stared at the words written on it as if she could bore a hole through it. Well, it says president on it, doesn't it? Will you believe me now?
You can't expect me to believe this. Anyone can forge a business card.
Why are you so unwilling to admit that I'm the president?
Because you were mediocre since school, not very bright, and the idea that someone like you is more successful than me. It's just.
It seems like Maddie doesn't want to admit that I'm the president because she doesn't want to think I'm more successful than her. I don't think being a president necessarily means success, but at least I feel happier than her, who seems to care only about appearances, pride, and status. Looking at the business card again, Maddie seemed to realize something.
Wait a minute. Come to think of it, the name of the company, it might be the same as the one my husband works for.
Surprisingly, Maddie's husband, whom she was bragging about, works at my company. Nevertheless, I wonder what kind of conversations they have if she's only vaguely aware of the name of the company her own husband works for. Putting that aside, I decided to ask for more details. When she mentioned that the industry and company names were similar, and I heard about the business content, I was almost certain that her husband was working at my company.
So, does that mean my husband works under you? It's unbelievable.
If that's really the case, it's quite ironic.
What's so ironic?
It's you who look down on me so much. I blurted out such words, feeling all the frustration building up. Normally, I wouldn't speak ill or sarcastically about others, but conversations with Maddie always seem to throw me off. Maddie, having been provoked by me, trembled as she clenched her fists. I might end up being yelled at if this continues. How can I avoid this situation? Just as I was thinking about it, someone came running from the building.
Oh, Maddie, what are you doing here?
It was Tom, Maddie's husband. Now it was clear that Maddie's husband was working at my company. Despite feeling awkward, Maddie greeted Tom.
I just happened to pass by here.
I see. Wait, did I tell you, Maddie, where my workplace is?
You did. It was on your business card.
Did I even give you my business card? By the way, why are you with the president?
It seems like Tom questioned why Maddie was with me and asked her about it. But she was visibly flustered now that it was clear I was the president. So, I decided to explain everything in her place. Well, your wife and I are former classmates, and she asked me to show her where I work.
She's your ex-classmate. But why would she want to see the president's workplace?
Wait a minute. I won't forgive you if you say anything more.
Your wife has been harassing me since school, and today she wanted to see the workplace of a useless poor guy. The moment Tom heard my words, he froze with a surprised expression. He probably never imagined that his wife would do such a thing to the president. Maddie, realizing that her misdeeds got known by her husband, was sweating profusely. It seems that she hadn't shown her true colors to Tom. Most likely, she must have been showing him only the parts she had covered up. Maddie was good at ingratiating herself with teachers and making allies since her school days. So it's no wonder.
Let me hear the details.
Well, you see, that was just, a joke between classmates. Don't take it seriously, okay?
That wasn't a joke. Are you planning to harass me and then make excuses?
Shut up, you're such a loser. Annoying me so much.
Maddie finally raised her voice in response to my remarks. She looked startled and covered her mouth with her hand, but it was too late. Tom seemed to be suspicious of Maddie now. Back in high school, Maddie had changed partners quite frequently, but her true nature had been exposed, leading to breakups. Perhaps history would repeat itself this time. She seemed to realize this herself, as she looked at Tom with a frightened expression. Come to think of it, Maddie had mentioned being a housewife. If Tom were to mention divorce here, it would be quite a scene. However, Tom didn't immediately mention divorce. He couldn't forgive his wife for disrespecting me, the president, but he said something like this.
I'm disappointed in you, Maddie. I thought you were a good wife.
I haven't done anything wrong. It's true. Please believe me, not this guy.
The president wouldn't lie. Besides, actually, there was a small matter our kids wanted to discuss.
A matter? What is it?
Apparently, the children had noticed Maddie's bad personality and had been consulting their father, Tom. With numerous troubles at their children's school and demands for special treatment from their teachers, the children were quite stressed out. She's trying to one-up the other moms in her circle of friends and orders her homeroom teachers to give her children preferential treatment. Upon hearing this from Tom, I couldn't help but nod. I haven't seen Maddie since the 12th grade, but somehow I could imagine it. I had hoped Maddie would become a better person, but it seems my bet was off.
I don't have time to deal with you right now. Just get out of here.
Hey, what's with the attitude toward the president?
As Maddie and Tom's argument heated up, I decided to make myself scarce. There was nothing to gain by staying there any longer. I'd only get dragged into their dispute. I quietly slipped away, but Maddie seemed completely unaware of my departure. 3 days later, Tom came to me and filled me in on the situation. It seems Maddie had an excessive fondness for children and inadvertently vented toxicity around her. And surprisingly, during our school days, she harbored animosity towards me. Apparently, she envied situations where I had many friends or a close-knit family. I always considered myself ordinary and unremarkable, but it seemed different to Maddie. So, Tom began to express how grateful he was towards me. Tom had difficulties with job hunting and had no choice but to take physically demanding jobs. At that time, I happened to approach Tom, who was feeling down in the park. I proposed to him that if he was job hunting, he could work at our company. Back then, our startup couldn't afford high salaries, but now, as the company has grown, we pay salaries commensurate with abilities. I was grateful that Tom considered working in a situation where there were hardly any employees, and it seemed Tom was also grateful to me.
If you hadn't approached me back then, I wonder what would have happened.
I'm the one who's truly grateful for accepting my proposal at that time.
When I told my wife about that, she stopped objecting altogether.
So, have you made up now? Upon hearing this, Tom nodded vigorously. Although I couldn't forgive the harassment Maddie had done, she might have had her own struggles and conflicts. It seems I just happened to be the target of her harassment. Maddie still sulks occasionally, but I heard she's wearing a kinder expression than before. And recently, for Valentine's Day, Tom inexplicably gave me chocolates. When I learned that the sender of the chocolates was Maddie, I couldn't help but be surprised. Why would Maddie give me chocolates?
I think it's probably her way of apologizing. Please accept them.
An apology? Huh. In that case, I have no choice but to accept them. Saying that, I accepted the chocolates offered to me. When I unwrapped them, there was a letter inside with words of apology written on it. At the time of the reunion, I still disliked Maddie, but now I don't feel much anger. I wondered if my heart could really change with just these chocolates and a letter, but somehow, I feel like I glimpsed her true feelings from those two things. Surely, Maddie must have a personality that struggles to be straightforward. As I ate the chocolates I received with my wife, I pondered such things. After the reunion, I went back to my usual daily life. It's a busy period now, and there are times when I have to work overtime, but I make sure to secure time with my family. Because I believe that my current health and well-being are thanks to my wife's lovingly prepared healthy meals. When I'm alone, I tend to rely on frozen food or ready-to-eat meals. But knowing that my wife is at home waiting with a delicious meal makes me even more motivated to work hard. Moreover, she's even started making me lunches so I can take them to work lately. Perhaps my wife, who used to be busy with the kids all the time, has a little more time on her hands now. While I chow down on such lovingly prepared meals by my dear wife, I focused on my documents. We're gearing up for some discussions about expanding overseas soon. Driven by the desire to make my company known worldwide, I'm making preparations for this overseas expansion. I might get busier again, but as long as I can make time for it, that's all that matters. Whether I'm having meals with my family, indulging in some late-night ready-to-eat meals, or buried in paperwork and staring at my computer screen, I still feel happy. It's like I can truly feel alive. I have work to do and a family to protect. That's all I need.
The groom suddenly grabbed a plate full of food and threw it onto the floor. Sauce splattered dramatically on the carpet.
My bad. My hand slipped.
The groom looked down at me and laughed heartily, announcing to everyone,
This buddy of mine sitting here is a janitor. He's used to handling dirty stuff. Let's leave it to him. Please, janitor.
When I refused, the bride stood in front of me.
My husband called you social trash. Don't you dare defy the elite.
Then, my wife appeared and tapped the bride on the shoulder from behind. With a beaming smile, she said,
I'll have my dad fire your husband.
Right after the newlyweds were hit with this shocking truth, they collapsed to their knees. My name is Kevin, 26 years old. During my sophomore year in college, my parents died in an accident. Engulfed in sorrow, I dropped out of college and was despairing in life. But with someone's support, I managed to recover and now work in cleaning. At 25, I met and married Sarah, who was a megabank employee and a fellow graduate from a top university. She was a corporate sales representative at the branch, light on her feet and detailed in her work, earning her a reputation for steady sales performance and whispers of a future executive role.
My dream is to work in the heart of the American economy.
I always felt insecure during our dating days, wondering if I, with my mismatched educational and professional background, could truly make her happy. However, Sarah laughed it off, saying it didn't matter. I still remember the day she tearfully accepted my proposal as if it were yesterday. She had her challenges too.
How is it?
Sarah asked as she stared at me from across the table while I ate. Returning home early from work, for the first time in a while, she had earnestly prepared dinner, a cream pasta, following a recipe video. Honestly, it wasn't great. The noodles were overcooked, the sauce bland, and the broccoli pieces were tough. But I was happy with her effort, regardless of the taste. Yeah, it's delicious. I ate heartily, trying not to let on. But Sarah, with a disappointed look, propped her cheek with her hand.
Kevin, your nose swells when you lie.
I instinctively covered my nose.
Why? I followed the recipe exactly.
Seeing her downcast, I couldn't help but laugh.
That's terrible. Laughing at me.
Sarah pouted and glared at me. Sorry, it's just, you're so competent at work, yet cooking seems to be your only flaw. Upon hearing this, She crossed her arms and analyzed herself with a stern look.
See, my parents are divorced, right? I was taken by my mom, but she was too busy with work to cook much. So it was mostly takeout or dining out. I guess I just never got interested in cooking. So, it's all my dad's fault.
I looked at my pouting wife and finally asked something I had been curious about. Do you see your father?
Once when I started my job, and just a few phone calls a year.
It's better to see him when you can. You never know when you won't get the chance again. I was reminded of my deceased parents.
Kevin.
Sarah placed her hand over mine on the table and said, I'll think about it. That day, I was cleaning the exterior of an office building. It had been a while since I teamed up with a 45-year-old cleaner named James. James is a veteran janitor with a first-class building cleaning technician certificate. He was the person the boss trusted the most. The day's work involved high-altitude tasks performed by lowering ropes from the rooftop. Since the work is done while sitting on a swing-like seat, it's referred to as swing stage work. I'm not particularly afraid of heights, but the work was risky, and one mistake could lead to an accident. So I was nervous.
Kevin, don't neglect checking the equipment. The boss specifically asked me to ensure you don't have any accidents. We can have Sarah become a young widow.
Yes. I took James's words to heart and performed each task with care. After 5 hours, all the work was safely completed. I was cleaning up the pylons and ropes used in the no-entry area during the work. Suddenly, my name was called.
Kevin.
I turned around in surprise, and there was Bob, who was in the same seminar group in college. Bob. I removed my helmet in shock. Bob looked me up and down, scrutinizing me from head to toe, and sneered as he said,
Seriously? You dropped out of college and became a janitor. That's wild.
Bob has always been this way. He judges people based on their appearance, occupation, and income. He decides how to associate with them based on what benefits him. It's no surprise, but he's still an unlikable guy. What are you doing these days? I asked him while bundling the ropes tiredly.
Me? Oh, nothing impressive. Just a humble banker.
Bob said that deliberately while walking around to face me, straightening his suit collar, and flaunting his company badge. It was a familiar badge. That badge is from Sarah's bank. Bob and Sarah are working at the same bank. I couldn't hide my disturbance. Seeing my reaction, Bob grinned smugly. Looks like you've got it tough. I've got to go now. I wanted to leave quickly, worrying that any further interaction might negatively affect Sarah's work. Then Bob said,
Oh, by the way, I'm getting married next month. A lot of old college buddies will be there, so you should definitely come to the wedding. Everyone would be so happy to see you.
I spat in my mind at the thought. There's no way I'd go out of my way to attend your wedding reception. But I decided to keep it cool, especially since he's Sarah's coworker. It's better to play it safe, not knowing the nature of Bob and Sarah's relationship. That's congratulations. I'd love to attend and celebrate, but unfortunately. Glancing over, I saw Bob smirking at me. He must think I'd be too ashamed of my own background to attend an elite wedding and was trying to make me come up with an excuse for not attending. He probably planned to use this as fodder to mock me while drinking with the others. Fine, if that's how it is, I'll proudly show up. I've got nothing in my life to be ashamed of. I had lost my composure. With a broad smile, I said, "Oh, I'd be delighted to attend." Then Bob looked at me with a surprised expression, his eyes lighting up as if he had seen something unexpected. His eyes were like those of a hyena that had spotted its prey. With the corners of his mouth lifted, a sly smile appeared on his face. Perhaps he had concocted a plan to make me the butt of the joke in front of the elite crowd attending the reception.
Great. I'll send the invitation.
Bob said that as he left the scene. As I watched his back, I already regretted my decision. Later, the wedding invitation from Bob arrived.
No way. Kevin, you know Bob.
At night, when Sarah returned home, she saw the invitation addressed to me among the mail on the table and said that to me while I was preparing dinner in the kitchen. We were in the same seminar during college. It seems Bob works at the same bank as you, Sarah. Do you know him?
Know him? He's my peer, and we transferred this branch at the same time. Now, we work together in corporate sales, so, see?
Sarah said this and pulled out her own invitation from her bag to show me. Are we both attending the same wedding? Knowing that Bob and Sarah were in the same corporate sales department at the same branch made me regret even more that I had agreed to attend.
It's a small world. I had no idea Bob was your friend. I'll try to maintain a better relationship with him from now on, no matter how infuriating it can be.
Sarah said that in a reflective tone while eating dinner. What does that mean? I asked her as I was curious.
Well,
Sarah then told me about her experiences with Bob. Bob is in corporate sales, just like Sarah, but he has a haughty attitude, looking down on others based on their family background and education, often belittling his colleagues. Because of this, teamwork is disrupted, the workplace atmosphere has deteriorated, and it's starting to negatively affect the work of those he has belittled. Although Sarah, with her top sales performance and prestigious university degree, was never looked down upon by him, she had been openly accused by Bob of using her femininity as a weapon. Moreover, he was reportedly making aggressive loans to meet his quotas, and once, when she subtly warned him, he shouted, "Don't talk back to me, woman."
I'm sorry to say this about your friend, but he's the worst. That's why I decided to stay away from him.
He's not my friend. I said that as I sharply put down my fork. I was simply unable to hide my anger.
What? I thought you were close, since you're invited to his wedding.
It's okay. He's been rotten since college. You don't have to deal with him anymore. Sorry for making you feel bad. I said that as if to throw it out.
Why are you apologizing, Kevin?
Sarah looked at me, laughing and seemingly surprised. I usually don't show negative emotions in front of Sarah, so she seemed a bit shocked. Yeah, well. I tried to cover it with a smile, but my agitation was evident. I couldn't stand Bob's flippant remarks, mocking Sarah as just a woman, without knowing how she comes home exhausted, like a worn-out rag, from working late every day. Sarah is not someone who would use her femininity as a weapon. Her sincerity and straightforwardness in everything she does are what I know best about her. I met Sarah 3 years ago while cleaning the floors of a large building housing several major companies. We have a contract for daily cleaning and a monthly thorough cleaning. That day was for washing the floors in common areas like lobbies and hallways. As it was a weekday, we had to partition the lobby with tape to keep half of it accessible and use specialized machinery for the cleaning. The work progressed smoothly, and the dirty floors quickly regained their shine. I love these moments of looking back at the cleaned areas. Just a little more, let's keep it up, I muttered as I re-energized myself. Then, a young male office worker from some company passed by, returning from outside. As he walked by, he casually threw a trash bag onto the floor, now slick with detergent, and said, "Take care of this too." I picked it up and looked inside. In the trash bag, there were leftovers from a convenience store meal and empty coffee cans, perhaps eaten at some park during rounds outside. "Hey, wait a minute." I called out to the young man's back, but he kept walking without turning around. I was angry but held back, worrying that causing trouble might risk our cleaning contract with the building. Then, I saw a woman snatch the trash bag from my hand and run after the man.
Please wait.
The woman, shouting, sprinted fiercely to chase after him. I watched the scene in astonishment.
Clean up your own trash. Even a kindergartner knows that.
The woman said that as she thrusted the trash bag back at the man waiting for the elevator. Reluctantly, he took it and got on the elevator. She then ran back to me and said with a smile,
"I used to be in track and field."
Her carefree smile instantly captivated me. It was love at first sight, and amidst my fumbling, we exchanged contact information. That was a first in my life. That was how I met Sarah. She's a woman full of justice, who sees things straight. My wife is not someone to be trifled with by a scumbag like Bob. I was constantly worried about Sarah having to endure any more unpleasantness from him. Should I cancel my attendance to Bob's wedding even now? No, canceling at this point might cause trouble. Bob doesn't know we're married, so it might be better to pretend to be strangers at the wedding venue. We got married while you were at the previous branch, so his colleagues wouldn't know me. I said that to Sarah. I didn't want to cause her any more worry, especially since she was already going through a tough time.
Why? Why hide something like that?
Sarah looked puzzled. It's no wonder she didn't understand the situation. To avoid any trouble. Okay. Seeing my serious face, Sarah reluctantly agreed. On the wedding day, the reception was at a top hotel in New York with 500 guests, a grand affair. Bob's bride was a 23-year-old woman named Jasmine, apparently the daughter of a wealthy family owning a restaurant chain. Among the guests, likely business associates of the bride's father, were some VIPs from the city. My seat was on the groom's side among friends. Sarah, sitting at a bank-related table a little away, was pretending to be a stranger as we had promised. As soon as I sat down at the 8-person table, I received chilly looks from Bob's entourage. Then they smirked at me, ostentatiously updating each other on their lives. Names of major firms flew around: top investment banks, major construction companies, leading trading houses. Amidst them, a man named Mike, seated next to me, spoke up.
It's been a while, Kevin. It's been 6 years since you left college, right? What are you doing now?
Mike was the only decent guy I could talk to there. Rumor had it, he started a business in college and was then the CEO of an IT company. Mike, it's been a while. I'm in cleaning.
Mike, give it a rest.
Before I could finish, another guy interrupted.
Don't you feel sorry for him, a dropout who's working as a janitor, a real-life underachiever, sneaking around among the elite? Just leave him be.
Then the others smirked and sneered within my hearing. Bold of you to show up, and a disgrace to our college. Mike looked at me, troubled, but I gestured. It's okay. The bride and groom entered, and the reception began, yet the snide comments toward me continued. I was prepared, being Bob's friend, but couldn't understand why my job was such a point of ridicule. Mike, whispering, "Don't mind them," and smiling was my only solace. This continued until the candle service, when the newlyweds came to our table.
Kevin, thanks for coming today. I'm glad you made it.
Bob said that as he looked down at me with a smirk. Congratulations. I greeted the bride as well. Jasmine, the bride, was young and seemingly beautiful, but her appearance seemed masked by makeup. What bothered me more was her unintelligent way of speaking.
My arm's tired, Kevin. You do it.
She said that while puffing her cheeks like a child. Her blush was so heavy, she looked like she had mumps.
Come on, Jasmine. Just a bit more to go. Let's keep it up.
Bob soothed her in a cajoling tone. The others at the table exchanged looks and chuckled. I too had to suppress a laugh while watching this. Suddenly, Bob turned to me with a devilish, pale face.
Kevin, you just laughed, didn't you?
No, not really. I wondered if my inner laughter had inadvertently shown. Then Bob suddenly grabbed a plate with half-eaten food from in front of him and threw it to the floor.
Hey, no.
Jasmine screamed, almost like a whale. Sauce splashed dramatically on the expensive carpet.
My bad. My hand slipped.
Bob laughed, looking down at me. People from nearby tables turned to see what was happening. A female staff member rushed over to clean up, but Bob stopped her.
No worries, no worries. My friend sitting here is a janitor, used to cleaning up buildings and such. He's accustomed to handling dirty stuff, so let him do it. Please, janitor.
But to ask a guest to do such a thing.
She began, but Jasmine interrupted. Just do what Bob says, and she dismissed the staff. I was beyond angry, just dumbfounded. Jasmine was looking at me with a sneer, just like Bob. Birds of a feather, hug. You two are perfect for each other. I muttered to myself with a laugh.
What?
Bob advanced towards me with a changed facial expression. Ignoring him, I stood up and instructed the staff lady. For now, as a quick fix, wring out a cloth in lukewarm water, soak it with dish soap, and dab it to transfer the stain. You should get it professionally cleaned as soon as possible. Then, I glared at Bob. I'm a professional cleaner. If you want it cleaned, come to my office and make an official request. I was about to walk away, throwing a napkin onto the chair. Then, Jasmine blocked my path.
Bob called you societal trash. Don't defy the elite.
I looked at her closely, thinking how different she was from Sarah, even though both are women. Then I noticed Sarah standing behind the bride. Sarah. Surprised, I saw Sarah tap the bride's shoulder and say with a big smile,
I'll have my dad fire your husband.
Jasmine brushed off her hand.
What? What are you talking about? That's impossible. Who are you?
Hey, what's up, you drunk? Save the sleep talk for when you're asleep. Outsiders should stay out of it.
Bob tried to push Sarah away. I quickly brushed his hand aside and stood protectively in front of Sarah. Then Tom, the bank's branch manager, appeared, laughing. The atmosphere in the room instantly became tense.
You've got a strong sense of justice, just like your father, Sarah.
Tom, I apologize for the unsightly scene.
Tom, observing Sarah's apologetic demeanor, continued to speak.
I know you're busy, but try to give your dad a call sometimes. He seemed lonely when I saw him at the headquarters recently.
Yes.
Sarah looked down, embarrassed.
Tom, thank you for coming today.
Bob hastily tried to step forward, pushing me aside, but Tom ignored him and spoke to me.
Kevin, it's been a while. How's President Ellie doing?
What?
Bob stared at me, dumbfounded. Tom, sorry for the late greetings. My aunt is as lively as ever, working hard every day. Tom nodded with a smile, saying,
I heard she's starting a new welfare-related business. She's delighted to have you as her successor. Says it gives her work more meaning.
Bob and Jasmine looked at us, utterly confused.
Tom, Sarah's father is? And this guy's just a cleaner, right?
Tom said with a look of disbelief.
Didn't you know? Her father is Alex, the HR director, and Kevin is the nephew of the president of Shiny Corporation, which owns many subsidiaries in cleaning services, and he's the next president. He's also Sarah's husband.
Hey, HR director. Next president. Husband.
Bob staggered back, his face turning pale with panic. Jasmine looked bewildered too.
But he was wearing a work uniform and cleaning buildings.
Bob pointed at me as he said that, and Tom, looking impressed, responded.
Their company policy mandates that executives, including those involved in management, undergo several years of field training. Understanding the hardships of the front line is crucial for running a company. It's truly an admirable firm.
Turning to Bob, he continued,
Shiny is a major client of our branch. If this incident leads to a transaction halt, you'll definitely be out on your rear. And if you've soured relations with the HR director too, well, there's no saving you. But hey, wherever you go, do your best with your lovely wife. I must be going. There's more to attend to.
Tom left with a laugh.
Tom, that's impossible.
Bob and Jasmine nervously looked back at us.
Sarah, Kevin.
Bob looked at us alternately, his face twisted into an unsettling smile. Bob, sorry, but we need to leave now. As the next president, I must discuss changing our main bank with the president. When I said that, Sarah also continued,
And I need to call my father urgently.
Bob clung to us.
Please, Sarah. Kevin. Aren't we friends?
Friends, that's laughable. I brushed off Bob's hand, saying, You're finished. Bob crumbled to his knees, hanging his head in defeat. Sarah and I left the scene together. Behind us, as we opened the door to leave, Jasmine's screams echoed.
Wait, are you getting fired? This is no joke. Call off the wedding. I won't marry a man like this. Daddy, do something.
The room burst into chaos.
What? You think I want a foolish woman like you? I'm better off.
What did you say?
Sarah and I exchanged glances and laughed together at the sound. We took a taxi from the hotel, got off near our house at a convenience store, and bought some ready-made meals and beer. Instead of the missed full course of French cuisine, we walked side by side leisurely to our home bathed in the sunset. We felt like we were on a date after a long time. Are you okay with it? Everyone at the bank now knows about your dad. I asked Sarah as we walked in the middle of a small bridge over a river.
I grew up watching my mom struggle after the divorce, unable to forgive my dad for being a workaholic and neglecting his family. That's why I worked desperately hard, choosing a career in banking, often seen as too tough for women, determined not to lose to men. Or to my father.
Sarah said that with a distant look. Then she continued,
But working at the same bank, I finally understood the hardships my father faced. I think he had his tough times too, so I hope to build a good relationship with him from now on.
Sarah leaned on the railing, gazing at the river, sparkling in the sunset. She then turned to me.
I can feel this way because of you, who always gently supported me. Thank you, Kevin.
Her smile made me blush a little. Let's have dinner with your dad sometime. Sarah nodded happily at my suggestion. Later, according to Sarah, Bob's wedding reception turned into a mess afterward. It wasn't just the bride and groom. A huge fight broke out involving their parents and relatives who had been against the marriage from the start, leading to the cancellation of the reception. The couple split up, and the engagement was broken. As for Bob, he was transferred to a subsidiary of the bank afterward. He was completely off the promotion track. Since that incident, Bob seemed to have become quieter, as if he changed. But people don't change that quickly, so he's bound to slip up again soon. Years later, Sarah was transferred to the main office, working daily in the HR career group, conducting external training and programs to support female employees' growth. She was also putting effort into creating a work environment where women could balance work and parenting, becoming notable as a female executive in the media. As for me, after finishing my field training, I was receiving formal successor training under the president.
You're really looking good in a suit. I wish your brother and sister-in-law could see you.
I spend my days dressed in an unfamiliar suit, accompanying the president on visits to clients. Ellie would sometimes say such things and become tearful. At the end of the day, I stood on the usual bridge and watched the sunset. Lately, I've been feeling how truly fortunate it is to have a fulfilling job. I wish I could tell my younger self, who suddenly lost his parents, dropped out of college, and was despairing, about the happiness that was yet to come.
Kevin?
Startled by my name being called, I turned around to see Sarah, walking towards me with a smile, waving her hand. "Welcome back. You're home early today." Sarah approached me, slightly embarrassed, and said,
I left work early today to go to the doctor.
"Are you okay? Is something wrong?" I asked, surprised. Sarah didn't answer, but smiled brightly and pulled an ultrasound photo from her bag. Hiding half of her face with it, she looked at me with tears in her eyes.
It's 3 months.
Overwhelmed with joy, I instinctively hugged Sarah.
We're going to be parents.
She said that with tears in her voice. Oh, I wish I could tell my younger self that I am incredibly happy now. Let me tell you right here and now about the outcome of your interview. Coming from a single parent in the middle of nowhere, you're bound to be useless, not hired. Your parents supposed to be dumb.
With those words and a laugh from the interviewer, Johnson, my worn resume fluttered to the ground. Clenching my fists on my lap, I mustered a response. I got it. Then, I stood up and left the room. I'm a 29-year-old woman, currently a part-time worker. After graduating from college, I quit a company I was working for last year. Now, I'm back home, helping my mom run the family farm. My dad passed away when my brother and I were young, and the farm was originally his. Life is more comfortable now, but it must have been a continuous struggle for my mom, managing the farm and raising us alone. That's why I felt a sense of inadequacy with how things were. When my brother started seriously considering taking over the farm, I wanted to repay my mom in a different way. I worked hard, graduated from a big-name university, and landed a job at a local company, which turned out to be a typical toxic workplace. So much overtime, working weekends often, and the boss's unreasonable demands were relentless. After more than 5 years, I quit due to physical and mental health issues. I was down after returning home, but slowly regained my spirits thanks to my mom and brother's encouragement. Thinking I couldn't stay this way, I restarted my job hunt. "Why don't you just work here on the farm with your brother?" my mom suggested, making me waver. But I knew I couldn't rely on them anymore. Sensing my dilemma, my mom, as if reading my mind, showed me employment information on her cell phone. It was a major food corporation based in a big city, similar to New York. According to her, they were hiring mid-career employees. This big of a company. I was hesitant, but after hearing my mom's reasoning and my brother's support, I applied. Somehow, I passed the document screening and found myself at the company for an interview. I never dreamed I'd be interviewing at such a big firm. I'm getting nervous. For a moment, I felt like running away, but I took a deep breath. At the reception, I asked for directions to the interview room for mid-career hiring. It seemed I was the last candidate for the day, and the waiting area was empty. Soon, the door opened, and a man who had just finished his interview came out. He had a gloomy expression. Did he have a tough time in there? Memories of my previous job flashed, but I shook them off. Entering the room, I saw two people seated. A man is in his late 30s, Johnson, and a woman about my age, Smith, sitting a bit away. After greeting each other and taking a seat, Johnson, the interviewer, and Smith, the note-taker, introduced themselves. The interview began, and Johnson frowned upon reviewing my resume.
Graduated from a famous university, huh? Why did you leave your last job?
I braced myself. I knew they would ask about my resignation. At my previous job, the workload and frequent weekend work affected my health, leading to my resignation. I prioritize work over myself due to my strong sense of responsibility. Now I'm recovered and ready to contribute, applying what I've learned. Before I could finish, Johnson burst out laughing.
What's this about strong responsibility? If you had that, you wouldn't have quit and would have stuck it out there.
His blunt words shocked me, and even Smith looked surprised at him. Johnson, unbothered, propped his cheek and flicked through my resume.
You can't manage yourself, can you?
I felt my cheeks burn at that moment, but I didn't intend to make excuses. You might be right. However, I intend to apply the lessons learned from why I resigned in my future work. I replied. As I said this, Smith nodded and typed on her keyboard. On the other hand, Johnson snorted in apparent disinterest.
Oh really? So, you look quite plain. Where are you from? What's your family like?
Johnson, that's...
Smith began to warn him against further questioning. But she hesitated, silenced by Johnson's stern look. Is my family background even relevant to this job? And calling me plain, how rude.
Oh, don't you want to answer? Got something to hide, maybe?
Johnson grinned at my hesitation. His words about hiding something struck a nerve. As if I have anything to hide. While internally rolling my eyes, I honestly answered that I come from a rural area, from a single-parent home with an older brother. Johnson started laughing again, his crude voice echoing in the quiet interview room.
Straight from the sticks. Quit your job because you couldn't take it, single parent and from the countryside. I totally get why you applied here.
What do you mean by that? I knew it wasn't going to be a good reason, but I asked anyway. Meanwhile, I turned my gaze to Smith. She had caught my attention. She hadn't been typing during Johnson's tirade. Realizing I was looking at her, she averted her eyes. Perhaps under some pressure from Johnson.
Don't you get it? Typical of someone raised by a single parent, lacking common sense. I pity you, no cultural knowledge or common sense. That's why you probably thought a big company like ours might hire you. Put yourself in our shoes.
After his relentless criticism, Johnson turned to Smith, right? But she just looked down silently.
Whatever.
Johnson scoffed, not getting the agreement he expected. I was trembling with anger. I was trying to stay calm, but it might have shown on my face. Johnson announced loudly,
Let me tell you right here and now about the outcome of your interview. Coming from a single parent in the middle of nowhere, you're bound to be useless, not hired. Your parents supposed to be dumb.
Then, for some reason, he tore up my resume and threw it away. Pieces of what used to be my resume fluttered down. Who could have imagined such treatment and harsh words? I clenched my fists on my lap. I didn't mind being insulted. but I couldn't stand being ridiculed for my background and family by a stranger. Indeed, I quit my job once, regretted it, and felt down, but my family helped me regain a positive outlook. The anger inside me flared up even more. I got it. Then, I stood up and left the room. Right after stepping out, I took out my cell phone and made a call. He wanted to see my parents, huh? My mom answered quickly, concerned. "What's up? Are you okay?" She must have noticed the tremor in my voice. Just then, Johnson and Smith came out of the room. It seemed like it was indeed the last interview. Our eyes met firmly. Without looking away, I spoke to my mom on the phone. "Mom, the interviewer is calling for you." Hearing my words, Smith looked puzzled, and Johnson burst into laughter again.
What? Did you call your mom? It seems you weren't independent from your mom. Typical of someone with no sense, raised by a single parent.
My mom seemed to hear Johnson's laughter and said, "I'll be right there," before hanging up. I smiled confidently and replied, "My mom will be here shortly. You wanted to see her face, right?" My mom arrived in less than 5 minutes. Surprised, Johnson said, "Wait, you had your mom waiting at the main entrance." Typical of a single-parent upbringing, overprotecting and hence not nurturing common sense. He continued to throw insults at both of us. My mom narrowed her eyes, seeming to understand what had happened. Just as Johnson was about to spew more insults, he noticed someone standing behind my mom and froze.
President Mike, why are you here?
Johnson's reaction startled Smith as well. The man referred to as the president calmly explained,
"Well, I was just talking with her. I thought I'd accompany her if there was any problem."
Johnson looked bewildered, wondering why my mom and the president were together. My mom explained, "I came to the city with my daughter. While she was interviewing, I was discussing business in the president's office. I also wanted to thank him personally for the interview opportunity." She handed out her business card. "That's why she could come to me so quickly after the call." Johnson's eyes widened upon seeing the business card.
What? You're the representative of that big farm we trade with?
He then looked at me intently. "Yes, I am the daughter of the farm's owner," I replied. Johnson stammered, "If you had told me you were the daughter of our trading partner." Our farm's produce, managed by my mom, had become a branded product due to years of hard work and was famous in our local area. It was even gaining national recognition. I found out when my mom suggested this company that my late father and the president were close both personally and professionally. When I returned home and started job hunting again, my mom mentioned it to the president during a business conversation, and he offered me to take the interview and test at his company. My mom had explained this to me, but I was hesitant. 'Cause I don't want to be seen as getting a job through connections. The president, knowing how I felt, didn't inform the interviewers that a trading partner's daughter was coming.
What's this all about?
Johnson was in disbelief at my explanation. While he was flustered, my mom and the president were chatting amicably.
The president has been looking after us since my husband passed away. I'm truly grateful.
Don't worry. Your husband was a great help to me, and it's not just that. It's because of the attractive produce you grow. Your farm has grown wonderfully. Your husband would be proud.
Listening to their conversation, I realized that although I knew my mom worked with various companies, I hadn't known she dealt with such a large corporation. My brother, being the successor, probably knew, but I had been oblivious until recently. The president turned to Johnson.
So, was there any problem?
No, sir, no problem at all. Right, Smith?
Johnson, looking desperate, sought agreement from Smith, who seemed confused and shifted her gaze.
You don't need to worry about causing trouble. Please tell me honestly.
The president encouraged gently. Smith, as if making up her mind, finally spoke up.
Johnson has been verbally abusive to all interviewees, including her, criticizing her appearance and single-parent upbringing. It's questionable behavior.
Johnson, furious, yelled, "You're lying," and reached out towards Smith. "What are you doing?" I quickly stepped in to protect her.
He also instructed me to only record what he wanted. I was afraid to disobey him. I'm so sorry.
Smith, seemingly having held back for a long time, tearfully exposed Johnson's actions from behind me. Finally, she handed the president a bag containing my torn resume. Johnson's face fell. Then I explained to my mom and the president 'cause they were wondering. He said me unfit for the job right here, saying a single parent, countryside upbringing made me useless. That's when he tore up my resume.
That's a lie. President, she's making it up. It's all false. She did it, not me.
Shaking my head at Johnson's attempt to shift the blame onto Smith even now, I approached the president and offered something. I recorded the interview. Please use this as evidence. I handed over a voice recorder. I had recorded the interview for personal review, thinking it would help if things didn't go well. Of course, I had no intention of posting it online, as that could be illegal.
You even recorded it?
Johnson looked defeated. According to Smith, the interview was originally supposed to be conducted by 3 people: Johnson, his supervisor, and Smith, the note-taker. However, his supervisor had to take leave due to a family emergency. There should have been another interviewer, but Johnson insisted on proceeding with just the 2 of them.
Johnson has always tried to find ways to be alone with me and made advances, which was really troubling.
You didn't need to mention that.
Johnson, flustered, raised his voice. Well, that's creepy. My mom, the president, and I all frowned in disapproval.
But why did you need to harass and insult my daughter?
My mom questioned Johnson. Reluctantly, Johnson admitted, I didn't like that she went to a better university than me. Indeed, Johnson had made a strange face when he looked at my resume. Surprised, I blurted out, "That's it." Johnson glared at me fiercely.
Yes, that's right. The guy before you, I didn't like his looks, so I rejected him on the spot, just like I did with you.
All this abuse and insult for just that. He had taken advantage of his supervisor's absence to reject candidates he didn't like, apparently as a stress reliever and to impress Smith. But showing such behavior certainly wouldn't win anyone's heart. For such childish reasons, you've hurled abuse and insults at others, as a professional. No, as a human being. How do you justify that? You labeled me as unreasonable for being raised by a single parent, but it seems to me you're far more unreasonable. I looked down at the speechless Johnson, while the president held his forehead, seemingly at a loss for words. The president then apologized to me, my mom, and Smith for the oversight. Remembering something, he asked, "By the way, Johnson, aren't you married?" Smith nodded in confirmation. He's married and was making advances on female employees. It must have been tough for Smith. Johnson slumped down, covering his face, overwhelmed with shame. Afterwards, I retook the interview and passed a test, securing my employment. I moved out of my family home and started living on my own again. Other candidates also had their interviews and tests redone, which was a relief. At the final interview, the president expressed his expectations. "I'm looking forward to working with you." As for Johnson, his inappropriate behavior during interviews, harassment of certain female employees, and other misconduct came to light, resulting in his transfer to a regional office. Rumor has it he's now divorced. As for Smith, who was the note-taker, we've become close friends, now calling each other by first names. I'm now working in a product development department, leading a busy yet fulfilling life. I'd be delighted to eventually work on products using vegetables from my mother's and brother's farm. To achieve that, I'm determined to work even harder.